This video is being brought to you by Cutting Edge Gamer. If you upgrade graphics cards often, Cutting Edge Gamer is the perfect option for you. Lease the newest graphics cards on the market, such as Nvidia's RTX 20 series, for a low monthly payment. Click the affiliate link below in the description to find out more.
So Nintendo still insists, even after the Switch Lite was revealed, that they're not giving up on the Nintendo 3DS line. Here's why I think they're saying that. Let's get into it.
Skip it up and that up.
So it's been speculated for ages, and Nintendo's actions speak louder than words, that the 3DS line is dead. At E3 2019, there was zero mention of any titles coming out for the 3DS. And even beforehand, you just see the 3DS support waning. If you look at like the updates for system menu for the 3DS, I'll even have a link to it below in the description. It's for ages now. I mean, they just did a update for it on May 27th, 2019. It's system stability update. The last one, December 3rd, system stability update, and July 30th, and then June, and they're further and farther between, and there's nothing major besides system stability updates for the Nintendo 3DS line. So the writing's on the wall. You have the Switch Lite. Nintendo is not making any new games for the 3DS, and it's over. But Nintendo refuses to admit that the 3DS is no more. This is what Nintendo President of America, Doug Bowser, had to say to The Verge about the Nintendo 3DS after the Switch Lite was revealed. We'll continue to support our 3DS family of systems as long as there is demand. Now, what I think Doug means is, look, we'll keep on selling like the 2DS. They have that Super Mario Bros. 2 bundle that's $80 that comes with a great game, New Super Mario Bros. 2. And for young kids, that's a huge selling point. And even if you aren't a young kid, man, there are so many Nintendo 3DS games, which the 2DS plays, and DS games, because the 2DS and 3DS are compatible with DS games. The library is astronomical. So even if third parties and Nintendo never make another 3DS game again, there's a whole bunch of reasons to go out and still buy the system, especially if you have a younger one who's just getting into gaming. It costs a little bit more than a trip to get a 2DS with a great game. New Super Mario Bros. 2 costs a little more than a vanilla AAA game. Now, if you go into season passes and stuff like that, it may actually be cheaper to buy a 2DS, the Wedge 2DS with New Super Mario Bros. 2, but that's a topic for a different story. But why do I think that Nintendo is almost afraid to not have a true portable system? Because let's face it, I guess you could say the Switch Lite is a true portable system, but to not have a secondary console as a source of income. And I kind of just, with the rhetorical question I just said, answered it. This is the first time ever, say Nintendo officially says, yes, the 3DS is done, that Nintendo doesn't have a portable system as a backup, kind of as another revenue stream. Even if you think back to the NES days, before the Game Boy, Nintendo had the wildly successful Gunpei Yokoi Game & Watch games. Those sold over 43 million units. This is pre-Game Boy, okay? The Game & Watch series goes all the way back to 1980, before Nintendo even had the Famicom in Japan. And then if you think about it, throughout history, Nintendo always had like a portable console to sell if things floundered on the home console side. I mean, the NES was wildly successful, but then they had the Game Boy in 1989. And the Game Boy, God, they milked that dated hardware. That actually, I just checked now, was discontinued in 2003. The game, I mean, you could go into the different iterations. They had the Game Boy Pocket, they had the Game Boy Color, the original Game Boy. There was different iterations of it. And the Game Boy Color, yes, I know, had more advanced specs. It wasn't just that it had a color screen, but it was still a Game Boy. That was on the market. Those consoles were on the market in some way, shape, or form till 2003. Then in 2001, Nintendo released the Game Boy Advance. And that was when the GameCube era started. And the GameCube wasn't a big seller. It wasn't a flop like you would say the Wii U was a flop. That was definitely a flop. But the GameCube didn't do PS2 numbers. Hell, the GameCube actually was outsold by the original Xbox. So again, they had the Game Boy Advance, which was wildly successful. When their home console, the GameCube, wasn't doing as well as its competitors. Hell, even the Game Boy Advance sold over 81 million units. So again, Nintendo had that backup. And then, well, the Wii was wildly successful. That was a very successful console, but during the Wii era, they had the DS, which was also a huge seller. The DS sold over 154 million units, and there was various iterations of that. There was the DS Lite, there was the DSi, DSi XL, so on and so forth, but the DS line was huge. I'm not talking 3DS. The original DS was huge for Nintendo. And even the 3DS line, as of now, has sold over 75 million units. It didn't do DS numbers, which pretty much doubled it, but it still has sold well for Nintendo. And Nintendo, when the Wii U was hurting, they had the 3DS holding them down and selling well. When the GameCube wasn't selling that great, they had their portable, the Game Boy Advance, which did very well. So this will be the first time in a very long time, maybe ever, for Nintendo that they don't have another revenue stream to fall back on. Obviously, Nintendo can license out its intellectual property, so on and so forth, which they are doing. But what I think Nintendo and shareholders and investors and so on and so forth are thinking, like, yes, the Switch is selling great. The Switch Lite is probably going to be a huge seller this holiday season. But what happened? We're on the eve of the next generation. What happens if the Nintendo Switch's stride in terms of its pace and how well it's selling? What happens if people lose interest because the next gen consoles are coming out? I don't think that's going to happen, but investors are probably thinking, we're on the eve of the next generation. This momentum that the Switch has may change. What happens if Nintendo doesn't come out with this Switch Pro we keep hearing about, which will make it just capable enough so it could get the third-party ports like the Nintendo Switch is doing? Because that is still a huge selling point, that the Switch is getting a lot of third-party games. Granted, they may not look as pretty and blah, 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 frame rates, but they're still enjoyable fun, and the Switch is just powerful enough that a decent amount of third-party games that come to its competitors' consoles can also come to the Switch. If Nintendo doesn't deliver with the Switch Pro and people start losing interest in the Switch when the next-gen consoles come out, I'm just speculating, I'm not saying this is going to happen, and the Switch starts to falter, they won't have a portable console to fall back on like they did in the past. Now, I don't think the 3DS, with how old it is, would be that portable console to fall back on. But I do think that there are meetings behind the scenes where Nintendo's like, man, this will be the first time we don't have a dedicated portable system in ages to financially prop us up if something goes wrong. Maybe we should hold on to the Switch and have it be like a family value console for a little longer, just to see what happens when the 9th generation of consoles start. Now, if the Switch Pro comes out and it flies off shelves and they do make it powerful enough that it will be able to get PS5 and Xbox Scarlet games, and the Switch Pro is selling out everywhere, then I think we'll officially see Nintendo say, yeah, the 2DS, 3DS, it's done. We're done. We're moving on from it. That's what I think is going to happen. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.